ladies and gentlemen, good morning to all of you and welcome to the Science Business Annual Conference titled New Mandates, New Agenda. Will the EU live up to its promises on research and innovation? It's my pleasure to welcome you here in this Gare Maritime. I don't know if all of you knew, but Brussels used to have a port, and this is the station. The Maritime Station, Maison de la Poste, is part of it. It's a beautiful building. Just take a look around. It's actually really worth taking a look. My name is Marilyn Fieschi. I'm the CEO of Science Business, and it's my pleasure to open this important conference. Well, at least in a very important moment. I won't go on about how the world is completely upside down. Everything is boiling. The world is boiling. Europe is boiling. The research community is boiling, and there are good reasons for that. What I will tell you is that Europe is at a crossroads. And if it wants to take ownership of its destiny, it has to make the right decisions. And it has to make the right decisions now. President von der Leyen promised that with her second mandate, it would be the mandate of implementation, with concrete measures to boost Europe's economy and protect European citizens. We all know that innovation has risen on the agenda, on the political agenda. There is a common recognition that in the process of boosting European economy and protecting European citizens, innovation is crucial. All right. However, the direction of travel is kind of blurry. And this is ironic, because a compass was just released. But we'll have plenty of time to discuss about the competitiveness compass. I can guess that it will come up in pretty much every single session today. So we'll leave that for the program. And I think we will try to figure out what Europe and the member states should do to make the most out of the excellence in research we have here in Europe and what needs to be done to actually accelerate innovation in Europe. A quick word about Science Business for those who are less familiar with it. We are a news company specialized in research and innovation policy. We have a team of journalists following all the policy developments in research and innovation. We also launched the so-called funding newswire that is meant to help stakeholders find their way in this very complex research and innovation relating funding landscape. It's very complex, so we try to provide practical advices, testimonials, data analysis, and so on to find your way. Today is the annual gathering of the Science Business Network. The network is a very unique club, and a lot of you in the audience today belong to the network. It's a bizarre beast that brings together the world of industry, so with multinationals, research and academia, government agencies as well, associations. So we are an informal club that brings all these different stakeholders together. The mantra is simple. The network is about providing a high-level, content-driven platform, communication platform for stakeholders to connect and to air new innovation policies. All right? Thank you. I also want to thank the sponsors. And we should, those are the sponsors, all the partners and supporting organizations, without whom, well, this event would simply not be possible. So a big thank you to all our partners. And finally, we will be on social media, right? We all like social media, not all of them. And in fact, if you're looking for us on Twitter today, you will not find us there. Okay, we don't plan to put any content related to this conference on Twitter. We will be, however, on LinkedIn, and we are starting from scratch on Blue Sky. Okay, so there, bear with us. I think there are very few followers, but there's a reason for that. We're just starting. We're trying a new thing, like many others, but at least off Twitter, this is a statement. So, from that, I think it is a good time to kick off the debate. So we are going to dive into What's next for research and innovation as the new Commission gets down to business? And to discuss that, it is my pleasure to invite the panelists for this opening session on stage. Please come, and a big round of applause to welcome them. So from left to right, Annelien Bredenoord, she's the president of the executive board at the Erasmus University, Rotterdam. Next to you, Annelien, so Pavel Doleček, you're Deputy Minister for Science, Research and Innovation at the Government of Czech Republic. Nanna-Louise Linde, Vice President for European Government Affairs at Microsoft. And finally, Ehler, Member of the European Parliament, co-rapporteur on Horizon Europe, and rapporteur on FP10, if there is an FP10. We will see about that. Very good. Thank you very much to the four of you for joining us. I promise that we will talk about the competitiveness compass. Let's get crack on. Competitiveness compass, that was released last week. It wasn't very well received by the research community. It sets high ambitions, that's clear, but it also raises a number of concerns. And one of the concerns is that fundamental research is nowhere to be seen, and FP10 is nowhere referenced. And maybe, Annelien, I'll start with you, because on this panel, you're the representative of academia and the research community. What is the fear? Do you think that we really have to fear that fundamental research is completely or is underestimated in these innovation strategies in Europe?
Well, thank you, Marilyn. I think this conference comes at a very good moment because, indeed, if you take a look at the competitiveness compass, I think we all agree that we need to close the innovation gap with China and the US. And what I think is good is in the wording of the competitiveness compass, you can see that research and innovation are the pillars, is key for actually closing the gap. But then there is no single reference to a standalone FP10 or a standalone framework program for research and innovation. And the entire competitiveness compass is about actually top-down, steered, directed research and innovation. And actually, yesterday we had in the European Parliament the STOA conference on scientific freedom. And actually, I was quite impressed by the President of European Parliament, Metsola. She also said in her opening, having full top-down or politically steered research and innovation, that seriously threatens academic freedom. And that's not how science and research work. So you can have, like we had now in Horizon Europe, you can have some pillars where there are the bigger societal questions steered by politics for research, but you really need a strong, independent ERC, MSCA, EIC, and there is no single reference at all. And so we're quite concerned, but I know also yesterday that many people are concerned about this from all kind of angles, not only like me from academia. So I think now is the time to really emphasize that it's really necessary. The European research framework has been, last year we celebrated 40 years. And I think it has been a huge success, the biggest public research investment program in the world. So rather than copying things that other parts of the world are doing, I would say invest in what we are good at as Europe. So I think that's really, really important. But yes, we are concerned.
And then you were a member of the Ehler group, the group that was chaired by Manuel Ehler that has released a number of recommendations towards FP10. Do you see any of these recommendations picked up in the compass, or are they two worlds apart?
Well, you need to be very creative to see anything of our recommendations of the Ehler report back in the compass. So I need to admit, and I think that is worrisome as well. So it refers to Draghi and to Letta, but the Ehler report emphasized the importance of a very strong ERC, of doubling the budget for research and innovation to minimally 220 billion, but explicitly also to have both independent, curiosity-driven research as well as more questions focused on top-down steering. And there were other suggestions in the Hater report, which I'm very enthusiastic about. Think, for example, about the strong position of the social science and humanities, which is actually one of, in Europe, we are really, really big and successful in social science, humanities research, including economics, law, business administration. And it's also really important not to completely focus on economic competitiveness, but to keep it broader, because that's where we're good at Europe. So I would say yes, we are in important times because governments are changing around the world. But I think the answer should be is that we are even start doing better what we are good at in Europe and not copying other types of behavior.
All right.
Of programs.
Christian, the Parliament is taking up the fight, right? But is the independence of fundamental research in the framework program really at risk, since this is one of the main concerns here today?
I mean, wars are the currency of politics. And I mean, either politics are raising concerns and worries and then offering a solution, or the existing worries and concerns, and politics comes then and say, give an ease to that. So it's a little bit the currency of the game. And just to make it clear, there will be a framework program 10.
Okay, that's a relief.
There is, I mean, the question was, would be the compass actually, I mean, it tickles my sense of humor, which you wouldn't expect from a German, I mean, a compass tells you where the north is. Usually not the way. I mean, the way you have to find yourself. You get a certain orientation where the north is. So in a way, the compass is a very kind of funny idea that it would guide now us in completely guide us in a certain direction. I think that two things are happening at the same time. The President put, and with the mandate, which might have been even more important, of the majority of the heads of states in the Council, put competitiveness yet again on the table as the #1 priority for that term. I think that is good news. Secondly, if you listen carefully to what the President had been saying in August, after she had been appointed, she had been pretty much saying the first pillar of my competitiveness strategy is R&D. That is unheard for the last 5 years, to be honest. So you see the ability of top politicians also to change the agenda positively, but sometimes also amazingly. So I think that had been all good news. Then there is a second discussion, which is interesting to some extent. It had been worrying, and that is, I mean, we had the big financial instruments, and that's the big question, how we are going to finance this transformation of the European economy. And we had the RRF, which was 500 billion euro, and the Commission is desperately looking for some kind of scientific evidence. There had been some growth coming out of that. And now the Commission is looking back to itself, pretty much saying, okay, we have 56 programs in the Union. How could we concentrate that program? How could we use them more properly, strategically? And there are school of thoughts. The one is pretty much saying we concentrate all in a big bazooka and have absolute flexibility in terms of the budget. I mean, we might have seen, and that is now affecting already the framework program discussion, we might have seen that every time something new, politically new came up, we had been paying that with the framework program, be it a CHIPS Act, be it the Ukraine facility, be it whatever. So in a way, you see that there is no flexibility in the European budget for new purposes, because the discussion on an MFF, a running MFF, is endlessly. So obviously the Commission wants to create some flexibility in budget issues. And there's now a pitch how to do that. And there had been a pitch from DG Budget saying, let's create the big bazooka, we throw everything in, and then why do we need a framework program? But there had been a clear statement from Commissioner Sarajeva in the mission letter, in the mission and in the hearings, and I mean all what the commissioners had been saying in the hearings went through the 13th floor. I mean, you shouldn't forget that there was a lot of new people and all kind of positioning had been gone through the 13th floor. And there was the clear message from Commissioner Sarajeva, there will be a framework program 10. So what's happening now is, and then you have to go in the nitty-gritties, and you see you worry for some faces concerned about lecturing Germans. I mean, there are 3 institutions. We do now the midterm review, and the interesting thing is the Parliament, and yesterday we had an agreement on the midterm review report, which I'm the rapporteur of, is that the Parliament had been concentrating actually more on basic research bottom approaches than all the discussions and fears and worries which are now somehow circulating. So you see the one legislator position it clearly that we're saying we have to think about the proportion between top-down and bottom-up. We clearly said we want to strengthen the ERC, we want to strengthen the EIC, we want to strengthen bottom-up approaches. And you look to the Council, and the appetite of the research ministers to get rid of their program is almost nothing. So I wouldn't be too worried, although I'm a politician and I live out of currency, and me saying we have a framework program 10 and you're saying, I think that the problems are much more in the detail. So what constitutes bottom-up, what really constitutes top-down, but this principal worry that we wouldn't have a framework program, that I can give you relief, there will be a framework program 10.
Okay, that's very good. Just one question. Do you think, we will have a session about the budget, but just, is there a possibility that the framework program has its own budget line? Or will it be, do you think it would be included in the so-called competitiveness fund?
No, there obviously will be a own budget line for framework program. The question is related to the financial instrument. So what is the future of the EIC? Will be the EIC integrated in a more broader, let's say, financial instrument? Or is it a standalone institution as it is right now? And we, for example, going to broaden the tickets, because right now on the top end, we just can fund something like 5 to 15 million. And there is obviously need for more room for maneuver, that we are going to go into bigger tickets. And then the question, is that then just the EIC, or is it then related also to the EIB and a compact fund and a budget in a compact fund? These are the questions, but not that we are going to shatter the framework program 10.
Very good. With its own budget line. That's good. Do you think the Council is going to support that, Pavel?
Yeah, I think so. Actually, we were the ones that worried a little bit after publishing of the compass. So I'm glad that this is the opportunity for me, as from the European grounds, to discuss those kinds of issues. I have to say, first of all, Czechia published its position towards FP10. I would say it was very much in line with the Ehler's report. Some of those issues were mentioning also. But I have to say, is it really that surprising? I mean, the European competitiveness compass, because there were some leaks at the end of the year 2024. And I would say it is just another part of the eternal struggle that we have doing the European policies. Obviously, there is a struggle, what is the really European added value? And that's the debate whether fundamental or applied research. There is a debate, what should union do and what should members do, actually, which should probably be the debate concerning the European Research Area Act and Innovation Act. So I wouldn't say it is surprising. And after we fight the war or the battle for, let's say, standalone FP10, we shouldn't forget that the compass brings about many of the topics that we should really discuss. Because at this point, there would be some interim evaluation which would be necessary because it's like evidence-informed contribution to this debate. But I would say that we are professionals in research, so we look at FP10, and we want that because we understand that, or to some extent we understand that. But there are other programs, and the Commission needs to have a look at all of it. And when Ursula and her predecessors, because I was at the Compact first in 2017, and that the research should be the cornerstone of each policy, European, it was said already back then. So we did that, and we have many programs where the research is a big part of it. I mean, digital, health, defense fund, and so on. And you can see, so we have research across many programs, and we want to put it down in a synergical way, hopefully. But to some extent, it is a mess, a little bit. So to find out a way how to have like a ring-fence budget for FP10, how to bring about the real added value for fundamental research, which is the ERC. And then we can try to move a little bit the other programs and find a tool that would really bring the competitiveness or help us raising the competitiveness. I think it's a big issue, and we should discuss it thoroughly. After the first fear would fall off, after we have agreement that FP10 would be a thing. So I think there's a lot of work to do, and we were worried. Now we are worried a lot less. I'm glad that the debate would go on, and obviously also the FP10 would need improvements, considering the Horizon Europe. But nevertheless, if you look at the bigger picture, the research is now already being part of many, many tools, and we need to use the experience of FP9, of Horizon Europe. We need to use experience from other funding tools as recovery facility that was introduced and the reforms that has been going on in the member states. And last but not least is that also the member states has its own value in the process, and there is a lot of things that we need to improve. It's not just about Europe. There's a lot of homework to do within the member states, so don't forget about it.
Okay, and it's not only about Europe. As a matter of fact, the whole competitiveness strategy is also geared towards closing the innovation gap with the rest of the world, and primarily China and the US. And Annelien, I'm coming to you now. Where does that leave non-European companies? I mean, on top of, okay, now we need to close the gap with the US and with China. In addition, I mean, none of this innovation strategy or competitiveness strategy are going to be achievable without substantial investment from the corporate world. This is also clearly spelled out. So how is it for Microsoft? Does this context and these geopolitical tensions make it more difficult for Microsoft to commit and to engage here in the research and innovation world in Europe?
So thank you for having me, and thank you for the question. I think that there's a lot of great ideas in the competitive compass, and you know, Microsoft and myself as a European, we do care about European competitiveness, even though we are an American company, and we share the sense of urgency. In the Draghi report, adoption is, in the competitive compass, adoption is called out as one of the key elements for Europe's competitiveness going forward. Adoption of technology, and especially adoption of AI. And we are far behind Europe's own ambition at the moment. I think the ambition is 75% of companies should adopt AI by 2030. We are somewhere between 7 and 11% at the moment, way behind US and China. So I think that's an area where we need to double down. And you see companies, and I agree very much with your point about, you know, let's focus on the areas where Europe is really, really strong. And that could be, you know, the health sector, energy sector, wind energy. And we see amazing innovation with AI in some of these companies. Novo Nordisk, for example, just to take one of my favorite examples, you know, they cut 2 to 3 years of their drug discovery process by adapting AI, and companies like Vestas, big wind producer, they have improved the output from their windmills with 20% by adopting AI. So just a few examples to show that this is important.
Yeah.
And then back to your investment question, because in order to adapt AI, you need, of course, the infrastructure. Like electricity need power grids, AI needs data centers, but AI is more than what Microsoft delivers. You know, we need, in order to deliver, for example, AI in Europe, we need collaboration because AI consists actually of a lot of different text layers where there's a lot of need for others to chime in. We don't cover all the layers. Yes, we provide the infrastructure and the data centers. And I think, you know, Europe needs that infrastructure, and there's not a lot of companies in the world that can actually deliver that. We're not the only one. There's other, but it's very, very expensive. I mean, just the last 12 months, Microsoft invested in Europe 17 billion euros just in the infrastructure in Europe.
Throughout?
And, you know, that is a lot of money. I think Europe should use their money where they are strong. So we need partnership, we need collaboration. And then we need, and I'm sure we're going to talk about that later, we need to upskill people as well. Because skilling is very important for the adoption to happen.
The 17 billion euros that you invested, is it across Europe?
Yes.
So east, west, everywhere?
Everywhere. It's Poland, Italy, Sweden, Germany, France, UK.
Okay, so I'll come to that in a second, but you did raise the question of AI, so I will jump straight at it. The world of AI has been a little bit shaken up a couple of weeks ago with the launch of DeepSeek. Right? How's it been for Microsoft, and what has been the response?
The response has, I mean, maybe some of you have heard our CEO, Satya Nadella, talk about this. I think the main message is we welcome competition. You know, there's always the fast followers that have a little bit, you know, more easy, maybe conditions. I think it's different products that we offer. There's different levels of privacy. There's different levels of security. So these are different offerings, I think. We will keep investing in what we are strong at and, you know, double down on. And I think another thing as well is, you know, when adoption really, you know, we see that exponential increase of adoption, there will be room for a lot of other companies as well. But again, you know, the privacy and the security, I think that's a differentiator that we will double down on.
I have to say, though, the DeepSeek, I put my name in, and they think I am a personality in the field of innovation and startup. No one ever called me a personality, so I'm glad they came in. All right. Well,
and by the way, there's 59,000 AI companies now. Just 2,400 new ones just last year. So it's a lot of opportunity for Europe as well.
All right, good. Listen, moving also towards this question of East and West and closing the innovation gap. This is a very important question here because we need to, there's the future of widening, but widening is a part of the framework program. But if we talk about Europe as a whole, the compass seems to give the direction that we need to capitalize on those leading regions, the engines of Europe. So the question would be, can Europe afford a multi-gear approach, leaving potentially some behind? Who wants to take that? Pavel, you're from Eastern Europe. What is your take on that?
Central Europe? Yes, I expected that question a little bit. You're right that if you read the European Compass, you can see that there is the first chapter is closing the innovation gap. But if you read it thoroughly, it's not within the Europe, but it's Europe in comparison to the United States, especially under the Trump administration and China, obviously. So there is a little bit of shift. But I would say that it doesn't mean, I mean, not every policy paper should put everything on a paper. And I don't think that we can afford like multi-gear or different level speed of Europe. But there could be different approaches to it. Obviously, if you want from Commission to set priorities, then it means that not everything is for everybody. I mean, it's quite natural. You cannot expect anything else. Otherwise, if we want to level it down, that everything is for everybody, there are no priorities at all. But I wouldn't say that there are not opportunities or there is something that should like push the widening countries, let's say behind. If you look at the cross-sectoral initiatives as the EOSC, AI, digital, European research area, there will be a lot of things that would help every country to blossom. For example, European Research Area Act, as I read it in Compass, would push the member states to increase their funding on research. So maybe it's a different approach. It's an approach that we wouldn't fund everything, but we would push you to be better. And some throughout cross-European initiatives, we will let you be part of it. Maybe it's a different approach. We will see what it comes to. In the particle programs, we doesn't know much because the compass is rather general at this point. But I wouldn't worry that much, and I would say that the future of Europe is in its central and eastern part, so we wouldn't be left behind. I'm sure about it.
Okay, and we'll have a session around widening as well a bit later today. Okay, let's come back to the economic scene and the question of skills and talents, because Microsoft needs talent, the universities are training talents, all of Europe need talent. But do you think that Europe has enough argument for the talents here, or those who may come from abroad, to choose Europe?
Yes, but we should not, and that one of the proposals in our Heiter report is a program called Choose Europe. And there we say we are very, very attractive for young researchers from all over the world, and they come to Europe. But now we need not to be arrogant and lazy. We really need actually to gear up what we are doing to have people having research and academic careers in the European Union and retain talent. And that should be an MSCA guided program. Particularly in the beginning, postdoc, mid-career levels, because otherwise, and I think this is the moment to really gear up there, because for some people in US universities, it might become more difficult to have a career over there, and we can keep them here. And I think also, again, emphasizing our strength. We work hard, but there is a good quality of life in the European Union, in Europe. And I know many people who go to the US on the younger age to the famous universities, they come back to Europe when they start families. They want to raise their families here, and this is really a strength that we should capitalize on. So I'm actually optimistic about that, but we need to be alert, to invest now in this generation. And there I also see possibilities in this union of skills, of the competitiveness compass. Skills, I think this is also where vocational education comes in, but it's also where universities can play a role. And here we have been very good in the top market, executive education, but obviously there is a world to be won by the more mid-level lifelong learning. So I think that's also something for people in universities to set up lifelong learning programs. At Erasmus University we're building programs like that, not only executive, but also more like civic lifelong learning. So I think there are a lot of possibilities in there, and I think there is enough reason to choose Europe. And following up to your point, for the widening and for really cross-national collaboration, now we have the European University Alliances, and they are doing exactly this. So we have 50 alliances all over Europe. I'm president of one of them, UNIC, and we work with 10 universities ranging from Istanbul, Zagreb, Portugal, Finland, and actually we're building those alliances. It's now in the 5th year, And this is really the online teaching with each other, their student exchange, their staff and teacher exchange. So I think this is a wonderful program to continue the next years. Yeah.
All right. Christian, I come to you, but Nanna-Louise first.
I agree very much with what you're saying, and we see don't want to repeat all of that, but we're also seeing a great interest in upskilling when we do our data center investments. So it's always part of the investment that we commit to train around 1 million people in that country, because we think we also have a responsibility with the knowledge that we have to invest in the skilling of the European population. I think another aspect is a good environment for startups where young people want to come and work. And I think, that not to bring up a completely new discussion, but I think, the regulatory framework matters, that it's easy to be a startup in Europe, that the regulatory framework is clear and simple. I think there need to be guardrails, by the way, maybe a bit different than other big tech companies. but I think, less burdensome rules for especially for small and medium-sized companies. And then a framework that really encourages collaboration. We have our Microsoft Startup Program where we deliver free training, free software, free technology to startups for free. So yeah, that's just some elements. But I think people want to come here, and I agree with you on the way of life. We have a lot to offer. And also when I talked about this tech layer in AI, the consumer-facing applications, there's a lot of room for innovation and for startups that can really thrive here.
Do you really face a talent shortage, as we hear a lot about in Europe?
Yes.
In terms of recruitment?
Yes, absolutely.
In what positions?
Just, no, I think of skills in different ways. So one is, of course, the general skills in the population that make them able to adapt the technology. And then there's, of course, the more specialized people within the companies. But there was also leadership skills in how do you really, on a leadership level, understand how the technology can be adapted in your company. So it's a very broad question. So I think the skilling needs to address those different levels.
All right.
Yeah.
I want to come back to the question of skills, actually, and the union of skills. And you picked the example of university alliances. And Christian, maybe I'll come to you on that. There have been multiple attempts of bringing the worlds of higher education and research closer over the years, right? And they are, the debate is not new. What can make it different?
I think as you had been rightly saying, that there are a lot of, let's say, components of that discussion which we would have to tick in order to answer the question. Let's be realistic. In Europe, we are facing fundamental problems. First of all, the European societies turned in a direction which is not tech-affine. And that is disproportional to the fact that the well-being of the European societies, our social systems are depending exactly on that, because that had been our comparative advantage. And I think that's a fundamental question also in politics, that whether you lead societies being more positive about R&I, new technologies, this kind of basic skepticism where every new technology which had been developed in Europe or somewhere in the world, which came after color TV, had been questioned in Europe as somehow the end of the world. And I think that's a fundamental attitude, and it had been fed also to some extent by politics, because we are permanently pretending that we have to protect people against AI, or we have to regulate before we even roll out the potentials for our society, also the individual. Then we have a second layer. This is simply the demographic reality. We're losing in Germany each year practically 15,000 engineers. Simply, they're not going to come, and 15,000 engineers go into their pension schemes, which is devastating. And the demography problem we are facing is one of the super challenges, I think, for our educational systems, because we can't risk to lose anyone. So that is, from my point of view, for example, the question also of gender balance. I mean, that had been a moral discussion so far, but it's a demographic disaster that we are losing at average in biotechnology, for example, half of the women after 7 years because they can't combine their idea of family life and a professional life. So it's a disaster simply. So we have to do everything that we are trying to find an idea how to cope with the demographic problem. The interesting thing is that even technology might be the only answer to that. We might desperately need AI because we won't have the academics who are doing this relatively ordinary kind of intellectually, let's say, humble kind of serial work. So technology, interestingly, is also the answer at the same time for the demographic problem. And that is something I think it's important. We have this paradox in the world that we are in Europe, but also given what we geopolitically see and what the new American administration is going to tell us, that we seem to go back to an antagonistic national world of the 19th century, where the real world of science, I mean, big business is almost the opposite. I mean, Microsoft is, yes, an American company, but I mean, we had been looking for Microsoft more in the sense when I was looking back to the question whether you could have patents on algorithm or something like that, as a new breed of global companies which are no longer so much affiliated with, let's say, a kind of national home or whatsoever. So we pretend that now there's an American policy for Microsoft or a European policy saying, oh, we have to be very careful about the American companies. We're living in a deeply integrated world. There are a lot of questions related to that, whether politics is really steering the world anymore, but I think it's a paradox that the realities are not reflected by the rhetoric of politics. And even the question of talent or the widening discussion in Europe, I mean, there is a working population which is able to move beyond borders, and we shouldn't try to feed this illusion that you have to keep your people at home, because people will go where it's more attractive. They might then go back home. They might wander within companies which are acting globally. So this paradox could hamper really the development of science and the general development of our societies, because we are trying to explain the world in the nationalistic terms of the 19th century, whereas the world and the realities are completely different. And I think that is why it is such a multi-layer problem, which is constituting of a lot of facts, and we smartly have to address them. But the basic problem is we have to educate our population. We have to have a more positive attitude towards technology, because exactly these technologies might solve the problems we are no longer able to solve in terms of our challenges about democracy. So yes, I'm also just touching the first surface, but I just would warn us that we are now falling in this antagonistic, simplistic model of politics to refer to the 19th centuries, where the realities are completely different.
Do you all agree?
Yes, and I would add actually that we should not be too cautious for technology. But then again, I think it's the European strength that we always say technological innovation goes hand in hand with social innovation. And that there we can distinguish ourselves. and have a very attractive proposition, also for people who would like to stay and work in Europe.
I agree very much with you, and actually also with you. You know, we need guardrails to make sure that technology can be used in a safe and reliable way. That's no question. But there has been a lot of focus on, you know, prohibitions, risk. What about also looking at some of the opportunities? You know, it's a little bit shift in mindset. There's this saying that in the US they hire engineers, in Europe we hire lawyers. And there's a little bit of that, so I think a little bit more focus on all the opportunities would be good for Europe.
Okay. Listen, I just want to ask a question about startups. There will be a question about startups because you brought the topic on, Nanna-Louise. Most of you must have heard about the 28th regime, and there is this. It's something that would come on top of national law, of course, but the idea is to make it easier for startups to set up, to scale up, and so on. So, is there finally a momentum for startup in Europe?
No, I would add something from the perspective of the member state, because there is a quite momentum in Czechia. We finally took seriously the ESNA standard, so we try to boost the ecosystem a little bit, because we know that we are falling behind. So we are discussing about the standards, about the new legislation, about the ESOPs. I mean, stuff. It would be probably common for many other countries, but there is a quite momentum within Czechia. We want to make it much better. And when there would be another initiative from the European level, let's say the 28th regime, which sounds nice, I would just only want Europe to be discussing with the member states, so we do not do something that goes against, because I would say that every member state on its level is somehow coping with this issue, and if there should be some parallel regime, we definitely be much more in contact. What does it be? What's the whole concept? What is the added value of it, actually? So I think that there is a momentum on the, let's say in Czechia. I can see from the mission letter and from the name of the position of the commissioner that there should be a momentum on the European level, but it sounds promising, but the realization itself is the major issue we need to tackle. So I'm hoping for alignment with the member state from the commissioner, and that's probably all I can say at this point and the time in our debate.
Annelien, startups ecosystem is
I
important.
already said a little bit.
Yeah,
I think I really believe that Europe can be a very good place for startups. There's a lot of opportunities. As I said, just in AI, there's 59,000 companies now. Let's get a lot of them to Europe, but we need the right environment here. The regulatory environment and is important, clarity, not too burdensome rules. And then, as I said, we have made different programs that should help startups. We also have made some commitments around our data centers so that these startups have access to the infrastructure. So we have put some principles upon ourselves about free access or on fair and equal terms in a responsible way. But that's only a little piece of the picture. I think you said a lot of interesting things as well that need to happen. But if we do it right, we can have really a blooming startup community here. And I think AI is really an area where we can, because we are so good in Europe, we have so many strengths here. So let's, let's look also on the optimistic side. We have so many strengths in Europe, and let's build on those strengths.
All right, good. Christian, last question for you. Oh, well, first you want to comment, so go ahead.
No, I mean, on startups, it's the same issue. I mean, what constitutes a startup culture? First of all, that there's not a fear of failure. And we have a problem in Europe. We like successful people, but we blame anyone who potentially could fail. And the nature of startups, to be honest, I mean, is failure. I mean, 80% of startups don't survive. In other parts of the world, nobody has a problem. If you are failing with your company and you go yet again to a bank in Europe, said, oh, not
You
again.
failed.
So it's a matter of culture. The second thing, a more obvious thing, we have a really not intelligent VC capital culture in Europe, because we don't have special interest funds. Usually, if a fund is investing in deep tech, I know them all. I've been funding a biotechnology company and sold them for the reason, because the limit was me, because I couldn't get enough money actually on the market. But I mean, if you go to a VC capital fund in Europe, and which is investing in a deep tech investment, they're desperate. The next investment is a pizza delivery service, because they're math driven in their portfolio risk. We don't have enough money, and we didn't stipulate a capital market which is risk affine and more dedicated to that kind of investment, whereas European VC capital money is dump. It's portfolio and math driven. And there is a culture in the United States that has to do something with lower taxes, that you can have in your personal investment portfolio some risk, because you don't pay so much taxes and you can lose. But on the other hand, you add that as a leverage to the potential of your portfolio, even individually as an investor. So, and we have to care about that. And that is, I mean, and I think Ursula von der Leyen is doing something brave. Which is not well understood. She's asking for a capital market union. Yeah. Nothing less. I mean, the German Sparkassen will go nuts on that. But we have to care about that we need more money. We have to be attractive globally. I mean, the Silicon Valley has nice weather, talented people, but there's nothing behind the Silicon Valley beyond. It's super attractive for capital, and it's super attractive for talented people. It's not that in California on the trees there had been growing chips. So in a way, to foster that surrounding, that is what we need. And I think in the compass, what von der Leyen had been formulating, and I'm usually super critical, and they don't let me into public because I'm the party pooper. But I mean, this is really a brave approach. And although not everyone finds everything in that, but I mean, that's a communication. But what she had been saying, we do know more market. We want to have a capital union. We're going for R&I. I mean, that's unheard for the last 10 years. So let's be a little bit more optimistic and give her a kick that she's going to succeed.
Well, I think we need to end on that note. Thank you. Well, all right, we'll wrap it up here. Please thank the speakers. Thank you. We free you up. Christian, I wanted to ask you more questions, but I think you've wrapped it very well, and I think we need the optimism. So thanks, I think it's a very good way to end this opening session. So this is the call to action moments. And to do that, I'm going to give the floor to Robert Jan Smits, the president of the executive board at TU Eindhoven, who is here to present an initiative that TU Eindhoven has launched in partnership with Elsevier. Robert Jan, the floor is yours.
Well, good morning, everyone. And I think the panel discussion we just had showed that we are living in turbulent times. And that has nothing just to do with, of course, the situation, the geopolitical situation of Mr. Trump, or what's going on in China. It's also, of course, due very much to how AI is disrupting our societies. And we see very clearly that as a result of that, Europe is looking for a new agenda. Europe is looking for a new mission. Europe is looking for a new elan. And the input which was given by Draghi and Letta are extremely useful as that. And we see coming out of now the European agenda, that is the competitiveness compass for the EU. So it's clear that Europe is looking for a new direction, for a new North Star. And as a matter of fact, I think that not just the European Union and Europe as a whole, the political institutions need to take their responsibility in looking for this new elan. But I also think that Europe's universities should look for a new elan. And that means that universities should go beyond their traditional role of education, research, and valorization, knowledge transfer. Universities should more than ever think about their promise to society, should more than ever to get out of the ivory tower, should more than ever think about what will they deliver to the citizen. And that brought us to the concept of the fourth generation university, which are universities which are orchestrators of change, which do transformative research and want to make the contribution to the agenda of the countries, of the regions, of Europe, of the world. We recently did a report on the Eindhoven University of Technology, where I'm working, as an example of a fourth generation university. A university which is taking its responsibility for the region, which is an agent of transformation, orchestrating change and dialogue and change in the region where we are located. This report was done with the help of Elsevier, and we used new metrics. We went away from the traditional rankings. We used new metrics in order to, more than ever before, valorize the role universities can play. The report is going viral at the moment, an enormous amount of attention from universities across the globe, and that led us to the situation that we want to create a community of fourth generation universities who, like us in Eindhoven, would like to go on this journey of being agents of transformation and leading indeed the change instead of just following the change. And that's why we call upon all of you universities here present today, join us in this endeavor, talk with us about it, be part of this global community, and you see there's already quite a number of interests expressed by universities from across the globe. We are there over the coffee break and during the whole day, so if you want to get further information, let us know. But as of today, we have a dedicated website and the concept has gone viral. Thank you very much for your attention and enjoy the coffee break and the rest of the conference.
We have another call to action announcement. And so we're going just to take another couple of minutes to watch a little video that is a teaser towards one of the sessions that we'll have later today on the so-called Attract Academy. So we are going to look at another example of what can concretely happen on the ground to, well, to bring different worlds together and to push innovation. So, short video.
To succeed in global tech markets, Europe is going to need lots more talent. Engineers, entrepreneurs, designers, programmers, and more. To help get that talent, there's an unusual training project underway. It's called the Attract Academy. So how does the Academy work? Well, with EU funding, Attract brings together university students from all fields. They travel to some of Europe's biggest labs, like the CERN Particle Accelerator in Geneva. There, they work hands-on with some true wizards in deep tech, brainstorming business plans or marketing strategies for cool new technologies. From this, they emerge with hands-on experience of getting new technologies from lab to market.
I'm Joachim Braun, and I'm a third-year bachelor student of aerospace engineering at the Technical University of Delft. Working on the HIPMET hyperspectral camera, which was initially intended for cancer cell research, after many iterations of the design process, we ended up with an application for art monitoring, specifically for monitoring paintings in museums. So I think this is a new way for museums to monitor their art and basically benefit from a new technique next to, for example, what already exists, UV, X-ray monitoring, all these techniques. But we implemented this new application, which is faster and more reliable. And I think museums will definitely benefit from this.
I'm Lucienne de Waal, and I'm a product design student at IED Barcelona. Our team is working with HYGER, which is a photosensor, and trying to understand this with a design background has been quite challenging for me, but seeing how it can be applied in the agricultural sector in order to reduce water waste and have an actual impact has been amazing for me, and it has definitely opened up my scope a lot. The majority of the water that's being used in agriculture gets wasted, which is especially a shame now that we have a lot of drought problems here in the Mediterranean. So we are applying HYGER, the photosensor, in order to detect moisture content in a plant to see when the farmer has to add water and reduce the amount of wasted water in the farm.
There are scores of projects like this, involving more than 1,000 students so far. And as Shreya Sikar, an Attract board member, explains, Attract Academy also delivers new technologies and promotes sustainability.
Attract Academy has a very strong focus on using technology for benefit of society. So the students are working with using the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals as a lens and as a guide for seeing where the innovation lies. And they're using these SDG goals and seeing how these technologies can be used to realize these goals.
The Attract Academy, funded by the EU's Horizon 2020 programme, is now in its 7th year and looking forward to more. You can find out more about the initiative by visiting www.attract-eu.com.
That was the call to action moment. So again, if you want to know more about the 4th Generation University Initiative, Robert Jan Smit, Federica Rosetta, and Nick Fowler are here to answer any questions you may have if you want to know more about the Attract Academy and what can be done in bringing together the worlds of education and research infrastructures. Well, that happens in the afternoon at 2:45 in one of the breakout sessions that is called Tech Talent on Demand. So that it is for this opening.